My Uncle James and Uncle David went on a holiday to Belgium in July 1914. They were both still at school. James was hoping to become a journalist. They took photographs of what they found in Bruges, and in addition, James wrote a piece for the Kirkcaldy High School magazine. I've combined his story from the magazine with the pictures which they took when they were in Bruges. Both brothers served as officers in the Black Watch on the front lines. David survived it, but James, when leading an attack, was killed at Mettern on the 19th of July 1918. A morning stroll in Bruges. Not a sound save the chirping of the birds in the trees outside, and as I lay only half awake, listlessly watching the sunlight creeping up the wall and wondering dreamily where I was suddenly transported from the land of dreams which I was so reluctantly leaving by the sound of joyous music. Low at times and loud at times, and changing like a poet's rhymes, rang the beautiful wild chimes from the belfry in the market of the ancient town of Bruges. Bruges, the medieval Flemish city. Why on earth was I dreaming there while untold worlds lay all around waiting to be explored? The doings of the day before rushed to my mind, the arrival in London, the journey to Dover, the crossing, a fleeting glimpse of gay Ostend, and a belated arrival in Bruges. But now it was broad daylight, and I could feel the faint odour of coffee which pervaded the corridor outside. That did it, and in less than half an hour I was on my voyage of discovery. Bruges was on its way to work. As I emerged into the street, my ears were assailed by the rattle of kettle drums and the stirring notes of bugles, and immediately a column of infantry swung round the bend in the street. These were followed by artillery, which rattled along with the cracking of whips, and lastly the lancers, who laughed and chatted as they passed, with the jingle of spurs and accoutrements. Nor was this the last I was to see of the military, for wherever one goes in Bruges, one sees the brightly coloured uniforms and hears the proud voice of the copper-throated bugle. As I walked down the street, I could not help glancing at the wood-clad feet of the passers-by, whose sabots attracted attention with their eternal click-clack on the cobbled street. At every street corner stood a little estaminet, now deserted, but only temporarily as the empty glasses on the little round tables served to show. Suddenly the street widened out, and I found myself in a broad open square presided over by the highly gilded Justice de Paix and Hotel de Ville on one side, and a row of shady elms on the other. Crossing this, I again plunged into narrow streets and tortuous byways, and emerged in a few minutes in the market square. This is the centre of Bruges, and I would have enjoyed nothing better than to have stood there all forenoon and watched the everyday life of this quaint old city. In one corner a fishwife exposed her cockles for sale, and here was a laitier drawn by a patient dog, or if the owner were prosperous, by two. Here an apple woman, and there an egg seller spread their wares. Here a monk in cassock and hood made his way to matins, and there a soldier in his blue and gold lent colour to the scene, while over all towered the belfry, old and brown. Being a stranger, I was quickly surrounded by a crowd of postcard sellers, whose knowledge of English was limited to such phrases as "buy postcards, 25 for 1 franc," and then they would proceed to count them in English, usually sticking at 16 or 17, and they were not easily got rid of. At first, forcible expression of the words "ochtermachtig" or "echelfechen" sufficed to cause their withdrawal, but they seemed to expect that I was not in earnest, and crowded round again with renewed vigour, only to be dismissed by compliance with their requests and judicious distribution of my patronage. The belfry, however, kept constantly reminding me that I was nearing dinner time, so I turned homeward, but not by the way I'd come. This time my route lay along the bank of a canal, which I knew would lead me to my destination. Every few yards a bridge spanned the water, and the swans which people the waterways looked up inquiringly as I passed. The canal was on the left of the street, and the right was lined with old tumble-down houses which protruded at all angles into the cobbled roadway. Almost every doorway was occupied by lace-makers, who sit all day and throw their bobbins backwards and forwards with an incessant tick-tick. I became so engrossed in my surroundings that I wandered from my way, and it came as a shock to me when I found myself again in the marketplace. The chimes broke forth in a torrent of wrath, and as the clock struck 2, I fled before the wrangling clangour of the bells.